small roof space where you stored your Christmas decorations. I think I was thinking James Bond pad or Mike Baldwin's flat off Coronation Street. Because back then, Mike Baldwin was my benchmark for stylish older man about town. It was only years later when I was watching that Louis Theroux programme, I realised that Jimmy's Swish apartment was actually a dingy flat in a tower block in Leeds. Yeah, things were definitely changing. Sophistication was starting to creep in. So we had bottled water was on its way in, but this black and white minstrels were on their way out. I remember my dad telling me and R. Kelly about the boss of his engineering firm who went on holiday to France, and he had Perrier water. You couldn't believe what we were hearing, water in bottles. And he was having it shipped back to him in Leeds. We were just like, why can't he fill up some empty dandelion and burdock bottles with tap water? Bottled water, madness. Singing and dance troops blacked up for family entertainment. Yeah, that was acceptable. But so many things were then in the 70s, like smoking. Everyone smoked. Leeds then was like living in France now, except without the existential angst and the pain au raisin, although we did have custard slices. It could have all looked so different in Leeds if everybody puffed on Gitan instead of Embassy No. 6. But the good thing about 70s smoke was it made everything a bit sort of hazy and soft focus, you know, like Dry Ice in a music video. It helped to tone down the brown and orange. But everywhere you went, everyone smoked. Every house I ever went to, they smoked. And every house I ever went to, they had an ashtray. When was the last time you went to someone's house and they had an ashtray on the coffee table? I mean, do they even exist? And if they do, are they green onyx and part of a matching set with a lighter and a big block of green onyx? You don't see onyx now. They should make a comeback. You could have it in kitchens instead of granite work surfaces, swirly green countertops. Oh yeah, sophistication was definitely creeping in. I'll tell you what else we had. Flock wallpaper, velvet stylised flowers in the design theme of the time, you know, new romantic velvet. We had red flock wallpaper and brass wall lights. Our front room looked like a pub. My mother thought it was sophisticated. All we needed was a feature pissed up bloke in the corner drinking half a mild and the look would have been complete. I'll tell you what else we had. Don't know if you remember those nail and coloured string pictures? Yeah, you needed circular effects, you know, to get the full effect. Well, my mother really loved these, and she commissioned the son of one of her bingo friends to do one for our front room pub. And he did a typical Yorkshire scene. Chinese bloke wearing a big coolie hat pulling a rickshaw. That's what you needed for circles. One day, all that tat will be on Antiques Roadshow. There'll be some old woman in a silver suit, because that's what everyone will be wearing. That was supposed to happen at the year 2000, but it didn't. Along with food in capsules. I remember sat in the dinner hall at school having our, you know, smash and liver, saying, by the year 2000, we won't be having smash and liver on a plate. It'll be in squeezy tubes and capsules. The future's here, and it still hasn't happened. I'll tell you what else we'll have as well. Those at Antiques Roadshow, they'll have, do you remember those paintings of sort of Mexican children with big brown sad eyes sat on dusty steps, and Ladro figurines? And the onyx ashtray and lighter, that'll be an Antiques Roadshow record breaker. But before pub style, my mother had an attack of the 70s. She had everything ripped out or knocked through. We had these beautiful, like, leaded stained glass windows in our house. She had them all pulled out and she put in picture windows, you know, massive panes of glass so you could see out. Then she put net curtains on them so the neighbours couldn't see in and we couldn't see out either. Turned me into an exhibitionist. Even now, I stand in front of my net curtainless window for all to see, just to annoy my mother. But pub style was definitely better than 70s decor. I mean, that was migraine inducing. Every surface overloaded. I mean, you had swirls and patterns on the floor, and then instead of having it all like clean lines and minimal everywhere else, it was no brown and orange striped sofas and zigzag anaglitter wallpaper. Remember that wallpaper with an extra dimension? 3D wallpaper. Wallpaper for the blind. Just because you can't see, you don't think you can opt out of the 70s sensory overload experience. Come over here and feel these walls. Can you imagine showing a Grand Designs house to a 70s family from Leeds? They just think it was a massive colouring book. They're like, Kevin, what's that? It all needs colouring in. Julie, go and get your brown and orange felt tips. Anyway, times were definitely different back then. My parents, talking about smoking, they used to send me up the road, age 7, to Mrs. Duckworth, who lived at the other end of our street, so I'm 7, to get Embassy 10 number 6. Mrs. Duckworth had a mangle in her back garden, a pipe rack in her front room, and a floral apron, not Cath Kidston posh floral, and she was illegally selling fags to underage kids. My parents thought this was acceptable. I mean, I didn't mind. I got paid in malted biscuits with stick men on them. So. But I think they realised they had to be a little bit more sensible and concerned about my welfare before they sent me down the shops, you know, down the road even further, to get their 2 ounce of Golden Virginia tobacco. 8. This involved crossing 2 busy roads and a 20-minute walk. But, you know, what could go wrong? Paedophiles and child abductions, it just wasn't a thing in the 70s. I mean, Jimmy Savile was a danger to no one until the new millennium. The year 2000 changed everything. The good thing about tobacco tins is you got tobacco tins. They were very, very useful. My friend Gary Scott also lived down our road. He was 2 years older than me, and I was 6 when we first met. He looked a little bit like Eddie Izzard. I keep meaning to tweet Eddie Izzard and ask him if Eddie Izzard is just a pseudonym. Did he in fact grow up in Leeds? Did he have an air raid shelter in his back garden he used as a den? And most importantly, did he have a Golden Virginia tobacco tin with folded up cut out pictures of page 3 girls? Because Gary Scott did. Me and Gary Scott were blood brothers, literally. Like the musical, but without the Nolans and the songs. But we're literally blood brothers. Gary Scott, like all 8-year-old boys, carried a knife. I mean, they talk about kids carrying knives now. Back then, you got your first penknife at 7 and your parents bought it for you. So there we were in his garden shed, and we'd be carving into our fingers, indulging in a bit of cross-contamination. Never mind, you know, sharing needles in Edinburgh, train spotting style. AIDS probably started with blood brother packs between 8-year-old kids in sheds. But yeah, they were very useful, those tobacco tins, and I actually used one as a time capsule. Don't know if you remember, time capsules were massive for a while. Everyone was obsessed with them, like the coming nuclear threat. I think I first heard about them on Blue Peter about 1973, so the year 2000 seemed like science fiction. I imagine Valerie Singleton, you know, in the next millennium, wearing a silver suit, opening it up, eating celebration cake from a tube. So I buried my tobacco tin time capsule in the garden. I put some treasure into it. I had a bolly, which is a marble worth 2, a really big one, a packet of spangles, and an Esso petrol station coin. I don't know if anyone remembers those, but you had an Esso logo on one side, and on the other you had a picture of a footballer. I had Gordon Banks and Peter Shilton. My favourite was Billy Bremner of Leeds United, and he got the honour of being buried in the tobacco tin, along with a 5 new pence. So all the electricity in our house was run on meter. You needed to feed it 5 new pences to keep the lights on. When I was a student, we had an electricity meter, and we quickly worked out that you know, to keep the lights on, all you had to do was keep a little pile of pound coins by the meter. You might nick the odd one for the bus fare, but it wasn't too difficult to have a little stash. Every now and again, you just check to see how things were doing, feed it another quid, job done. But for some reason, and amazingly, continuous lighting. But for some reason, my mother never worked this out. I don't know whether she liked the thrill of living on the edge, but we lived in a state of permanent anxiety because any time of the day or night, the meter would run out, the electric would go off, no lights, and we'd be plunged into darkness. And not only did she not keep a little stash, but she didn't check and feed either. So then she'd be, you know, it's all hands on deck trying to find a 5 pence. Eventually we'd find one in, you know, my dad's trouser pocket in the laundry. Lights would go back on again. The relief. But this one time, we couldn't find a 5 pence anywhere. But I knew where there was one.